Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Best Care Anywhere podcast. We are out here observing the beauty of nature. Here before us is our very own redneck nose breather, Ethan Wilson.
You know, just because I have set off a stick of dynamite in the last 48 hours, and because I've broken numerous county laws and federal ordinances in a third-gen Cummins pickup truck, does not mean that actually, you know what? Fair enough. Howdy.
Isn't he interesting? And our very own master of brass rubbing, Jasky.
I just really want the doorknobs to be shiny.
I love how you were ready with a response. You had no fucking idea what I was going to say. This is why we like you.
Hello, gentlemen.
Yeah, welcome to the Best Care Anywhere podcast, in which I, the host Anthony, dragged the two I just introduced through my favorite TV show, and I am slowly making it theirs, whether they like it or not. MASH. How are you gentlemen doing? What's new? What's exciting?
Well,
all right. Okay, you can't check off the gun us, Wilson, with that story. What? Without incriminating yourself further, please elaborate
and expand.
I was playing Minecraft, as one does on a Friday night.
It all happened in
friends.
Minecraft. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In
yes.
In their
because this podcast is from a 50-year-old show, and the people listening may or may not understand what we're doing right now. Everything you are about to hear absolutely totally happened in the video game Minecraft. This is where it happened, no place else.
Thank you. Your legal skills continue to keep me on the straight and narrow. So, we're having a good time. We're drinking water and milk and other healthy beverages, as one does, and all is just fine until a gentleman I had just met goes to the bed of his truck and pulls out some homemade dynamite. We're on, some acreage in Minecraft, so we figure, okay, what the hell? Lights that fuse, and it is not 10 feet from his fingertips before it is pure white and tinnitus. It blew me back. And, well, I guess I'm just counting the days until he no longer has a hand in Minecraft.
Mm-hmm. So, the Best Care Anywhere podcast legal department would like to strongly condone the tampering with or fooling around with any form of explosives in or outside of Minecraft.
You're a horrible legal department.
Hey.
You said condone.
Oh, shit. I did, didn't I? We do not condone. My bad. We do not condone them. So yeah, it sounds like you had a fun time in Kansas. I mean, Minecraft. Recently.
Exactly. Yep.
I would personally, if I were you, reevaluate my friend choices. But hey, you do you.
You've been friends with us.
So, Jared, how are you?
Well, actually, I've got some news for you that I have not shared yet.
You have news?
I have news. So, the lovely Forest Lake Association has decreed that, beginning Tuesday morning and going all throughout the day, and potentially part of Wednesday as well, the road will be inaccessible in its entirety.
Why?
They're repaving it.
He's in a gated community, don't you know?
Yes, it's a recently gated community to keep out the cores.
Yeah, if you're not in a gated community, just build a gate.
Just build a gate.
That's exactly what they did.
Yep.
So,
nothing else is blocked off. You can drive around it, but there's a gate.
There is a gate, therefore the community is gated.
I don't think I've ever seen it shut.
I love that you lived there before the gate. They built the gate around you.
Before half the people that live here had houses here.
Oh,
but anyway, so apparently they're repaving the road, which means you will not be able to drive on the road at all Tuesday, which means I will have to park out on the main road and then walk
walk
there.
Huh.
How
Damn.
long a walk is it?
We are the furthest from the main road.
Yeah, but for what
About that
would
far.
you say?
About that far.
About that far. I'm
Far-
making a
ju-
gesture
far
with my
enough-
hands right now.
Far enough that it is inconvenient.
Yes. Far enough that you go, I have to get up another half hour earlier just to walk. Yes, it is that far.
Mm. So I do have to mention before we get into the episode today, I do have to mention, Jared, I'm so proud of you. You used MASH as a framing device the other day.
I did.
You now possess enough knowledge about MASH to use it as a point of reference and framing device to help explain an anime to me.
Indeed,
The podcast is working. They are learning. We're moving on to phase 2 of experimentation. So yeah, fun times. Nothing exciting whatsoever has happened in my life since we last spoke.
Well, maybe you need to reevaluate your friend choices, huh?
So, season 1, episode 11, Germ Warfare. That is where we are. We are almost to the halfway point of season 1, which boggles my mind.
Almost to the halfway point. Wow.
Next episode's the halfway point. But yeah, season 1, episode 11, Germ Warfare. The air date was December the 10th, 1972, written by Larry Gelbart and directed by Terry Becker. This is Terry Becker's only MASH episode he directed. He also did a lot of random kind of TV episodes through the 70s and 80s, including an episode of The Brady Bunch, and he was an actor in a bunch of TV roles through the 50s and 60s. So yeah, nothing that shot out to me as anything recognizable, but hey, solid career for my guy. Before we get into it, this is an episode that as I watched it, I'm like, oh, I'll just take some notes, like I do. And by the end, I'm like, I have 4 pages of notes. And I was not expecting to have 4 pages of notes from this goofy episode. And yet here we are. So before we get deep into it, overall, I know we'll do the synopsis of what we all thought at the end, but overall, how did you guys like this episode? I'm going to ask that up front. Just generally, you can get into specifics later.
I liked it. I'm just a tad bit lukewarm on it because it humanizes Frank at the end, and
understandable.
As I've said, for crimes against gin stills, I think he should be imprisoned. But I try not to let my personal convictions cloud my judgment too much. So I am going a meh with a positive spin.
A positive spin on a meh. Interesting take. Okay. This episode is very. It's got a mood to it. I don't know how else to put it. It's got a mood. Yeah. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's got a mood. It feels a little different from all the other recent episodes. A little more lighthearted. Not really anything. It's just not quite hijinks, but it feels different. It feels like a different season almost. I don't know how to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, with that said, maybe we can kind of discover what you mean by it has a mood as we talk about it. Maybe things will come to light. But opening up, we have a pretty generic episode opening. Starting in post-op with Frank making the rounds, which he doesn't do anything particularly irritating in the scene, but his just aura, the vibe he's giving off is just frustrating. This, one of our fans says this in the comment they made about this episode, and I'll get to it later, but Larry Linville is bringing it this episode. I don't know what it is. We're 11 episodes into this season, and he is just firing on all cylinders as Frank in this episode, I think. Even just him saying, I worked on this one myself. Just something about, okay, that if any of the other doctors said that, be like, yeah, he's your patient. But Larry Linville is able to just throw the right amount of like condescending, I'm better than you-ness into that sentence, and it's like, it just sends spicy Frank vibes out into the universe, and I like it. But so yeah, we get Trapper removing shrapnel from the backside of a patient, which, you know,
as one does.
And then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to think if there's been another time. This is our first episode with an enemy wounded soldier in the hospital.
I think so.
I believe.
I believe first time it's explicitly stated there's an enemy in the hospital.
Yeah, like there may have been one, but this is one where the first time it's like actually a plot point, I think. So our opening scene establishes that we have a North Korean patient that Hawkeye worked on, and Frank is, of course, not quite as aggressively as he will be in later seasons of the show, but he's like, yep, he's a North Korean, he's wounded, we took care of him, transfer him to the POW section. And Hawkeye's argument is he needs like a day or two to at least stabilize a little bit. And Frank's like, nope, get him out of here. There's a POW hospital for him, yada, yada, yada. And Frank is militarily correct, but as a doctor-patient care-wise, he is not. Like,
he follows the rules he really wants to follow and ignores everything else.
You know, I've met enough doctors in my time to be 94% sure that's part of the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah, at some point we'll have to dissect the Hippocratic Oath. There are better episodes to do it in than this.
We could have a guest on for that. I have a very specific guest in mind for that. Yeah,
because there are a couple episodes, especially this is one of them, but later in the seasons, there are episodes that really call into question some of our characters' medical ethics. And believe it or not, it's not Frank.
I'm sure Frank's in there, but there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that happens that I'm just kind of like, that's strange.
Yeah, well, like even in this episode, they siphon Frank's blood without his permission, and then get a body fluid sample without his permission. Like that's already medically, ethically questionable. But we have some stuff coming up later in the show that they make it the focus of episodes. Like, yeah, one of our characters just likes making medical decisions that affect people without really thought or care for what that means for them professionally, maybe. But
all right.
That's in the moody, broody later seasons. We're in the fun hijinks season, so fun hijinks, yay! So of course Frank so Hawkeye goes off and he's going to go talk to Henry. And my man, have I ever told you guys how much I think Henry Blake looks like a sidewalk? Because people just be walking all over him.
Yeah, poor Henry.
This is another episode where they can't decide if Henry is a capable leader or a dude who probably shouldn't be in command, but he can rise to the challenge, like we saw him do in Chief Surgeon Who, or he just completely is a wet paper bag. And this is one where they make him a wet paper bag because not only is Frank able to like pull the army regs over him and say, yep, this is what should happen. And then he kind of stands by that. But as soon as Hawkeye calls into question, like that decision, he just again folds, which
immediately folds. Yeah.
We want him to be on Hawkeye's side, but at the same time, it's like you stood up and made a stance saying like, no, Frank's technically correct from the Army standpoint, and he can get the care he needs at the next stop. But as soon as Hawkeye, because Hawkeye is our moral authority, he's our protagonist. As soon as he questions it, Henry's just like, oh, okay, fine. It's like, man, Henry.
Okay, all right.
Henry, you had like a couple badass moments where you actually made a decision, and now you're just like a completely different character. But, and again, I'm not to say like he is the best commander in the world, but it's like he showed that he's able to stick to a decision and firmly and aggressively, and now it's just like, meh, whatever. But oh well. The engoodening of Henry Blake will happen, I promise.
Oh,
But
okay.
and I love that as he's saying, like, I'm the one in command, no one tells me what to do, Trapper just walks up and says, open your bottom drawer, and he gets
Open your
the
middle
liquor
drawer,
key.
opens left drawer, gets the good stuff. It's like, oh, all right.
Which that is the thing I love about Henry's. It's not his desk, but his new desk that's in the office.
His new desk.
It's got that system where the center drawer locks, like has a lock on it.
Mine does
but it's got the mechanism that when the middle drawer is closed, it locks all the side drawers.
Locks all the drawers. Yep.
Oh, I love that so much.
It's so handy.
Oh, it's so cool.
So handy.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But so eventually, like we said, Henry folds, lets them keep him in the hospital, but he says he can't be in the post-op, so he's not taking up a bed, so Frank's complaint is not warranted. So, of course, Hawkeye's like, he can use my bed. He's literally just going to be here a day. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
So we get him in the swamp. Ho-John's still here, you know.
Ho-John, he's here.
After his thieving and
His
stealing.
Let's not
bring up the thieving and stealing.
And
does it bring up does it bring up feelings in you?
About a few.
Anyway, Patrick Adiarty as Ho-John is here. He's translating for us. And we learn that the wounded Korean's name is Pi.
I do appreciate the very meta joke of, I wish I had subtitles for this.
Yeah, I wish I had
very
subtitles
meta,
for this.
Very meta.
And then even the subtitles just say speaking Korean.
Speaking Korean. Yes. A little bit of info on the POW, because we are actually going to see this actor multiple times. This is Byron Chung. Mr. Chung has a lot of acting credits, mostly little one-off characters or side characters in movies. Again, Asian American actor, very common trope for the time to have a whole bunch of different roles under your belt. But this is his first of 7 appearances on MASH, and he plays a variety of characters. But yeah, we are going to see a lot of him. He's actually in some pretty solid episodes, some very well-known episodes. So yeah, Byron Chung. Some of his other acting credits are he, I believe, played either a North Korean ambassador or agent or something like that in West Wing. He was on Lost. So yeah, he's
been in a bunch of stuff. Okay.
Oh yeah, he's a recognizable face. Okay. But yeah, Byron Chung. So he's in the swamp. He's getting cared for by Hawkeye. And they come up to the problem with he needs blood. So they need to type and cross-match him. And this is something I had to look up because I was very confused. So for some reason, they can't just give him blood that's in their stores. They need to find someone in camp to give fresh blood. I don't know if that's because he's a POW and he can't use camp supplies.
The reason was AB negative is a hot commodity, and if they used their last little remaining bit that could have gone to a friendly that also needed it, and something happens because of that, then they would be in hot shit. I think that was why.
So AB negative is the rarest blood type, belonging to 0.06% of the population. Last I checked.
Ooh,
so there's a reason that they're being so stingy with it.
So Wilson has the stats, but I went down. Hence the 4 pages of notes. I went down a rabbit hole with blood.
Good.
It's not going to be a 2-hour podcast about blood transfusions, but Ethan is correct. AB negative is the rarest blood type. 1% of Americans have it, or 0.06, okay, or whatever. Here's where I get confused, because AB negative can give to AB positive and AB negative, and they can receive any Rh negative blood type safely. So A negative, O negative, B negative, and AB negative. So that led me to the question of why do they need specifically AB negative if Pi can safely receive any negative blood type? Which
a good question.
I couldn't find a solid answer to it. So if anyone out there has the medical knowledge to correct me if I'm wrong, My guess is, obviously, if it's a non-emergency situation, the exact match is the right option. Like,
I mean, that would make sense, I would imagine.
I don't know if it's like, oh, you're recovering. Well, we don't have any AB negative, but here's some O negative. You're fine. Or if they would only give you an unmatching blood if it was a dire emergency. Because I know there are this is going to be something that comes up multiple times in the series, so I figured we'd just hammer it out now. But that must be the reason, is he's not on the operating table in immediate danger of dying if he doesn't get blood. So they want to just reduce the risk. Oh, shut up, phone. Reduce the risk of anything bad happening by giving him the exact match. That was my guess as to why it had to be AB negative, but I don't know. Some other fun facts. AB positive is also very rare. 2% of the population has it. AB positive can only be given as a direct transfusion, like we're talking here, where you want to have the exact matching blood type. AB positive can only go to AB positive. So you are not a universal donor if you are AB positive, I believe. All blood types, though, are safe to give to someone who is AB positive. It's the whole blood transfusion and cross-matching thing is freaking fascinating, because it's like, how did someone figure all this out? Like, today it makes sense, but like,
trial and error. I don't know.
Yeah, try. Put some of his blood in him. He's turning purple. That seems. Make a note.
That seems
Make
bad.
a note of that. Make a note of that. But yeah, they have to use Frank's AB negative blood because they want to give him an exact cross match, which makes sense. But it's when I first looked up, like, why is AB negative so special? And it's like, oh, they can actually take any negative blood. I'm like, why is this the plot? But I guess it makes sense. You want to give him the exact match. And I love the scene where they're looking and Frank comes in being a snot, and they all look at the blood sheet and look over at Frank, and you're like, oh no, this is where the hijinks ensue. Which leads us into a very interesting scene of Frank is asleep, and the boys are two
love
favorite
their little
boys.
accents.
Yeah, yes, the Transylvanian vampire. Shh, not so loud, my count. So yeah, Frank is asleep, and they're going to take a pint of his blood. Now, again, medical ethics. I don't think it is appropriate to take someone's bodily fluids without their permission. But
they're about to do it twice in one episode, so
yeah, it's Frank. So I mean, like, yeah, but still, in the real world, not a good thing for a doctor to do. But again, it's Frank, and we need the blood.
Yep.
Also, the Frank, them trying to like interact with Frank's dream is just strange.
Yep.
I particularly like Trapper's line of, we might start something we can't finish. And I'm like, I don't like the implications of that statement, and I would like us to move on. But they get a pint of blood, and they give it to Pi, and all is fantastic and well. For a minute, at least.
At least.
And then we get the scene the next day in the mess tent, and this... I'm just going to ask, how do we feel about the weird seeing Lieutenant Dish naked dream sequence that Hawkeye is having? How do we feel? What do we feel about that?
It is a thing that happened, but it's also kind of, I'm going to be devil's advocate here. It is giving us a window into Hawkeye's, how he sees the world.
Yeah.
Or how he, his mental state, his like, what his daily, things he thinks about is. I don't know.
I think it was very interesting for him.
Very in character. Interesting idea for the show writers to try to like do some more stuff like, okay, this is what the audience sees. Let's try showing what the character sees and what the character is looking at or thinking. Interesting.
That is a very diplomatic and fair way to say that. I think it's fucking weird.
Yep.
It is.
It's
It's so weird to go back after seeing the series through a couple times. It's so weird to go. There's like one episode a season where they especially in the first 2 or 3 seasons, where you watch it and it's kind of like Whiplash, where you're like, God, I can't believe this is the same show that goes on for 11 seasons. Because this is just one of those things that it's like they tried it and it didn't work. It did not work. And I'm glad they moved away from doing the weird little sight gags like that as time goes on. The comedy is still good, but the like weird dream sequence.
It still feels like they're still trying to like feel out what their style is, what works, what doesn't. That's what it feels like. Yeah, the show's always funny, but how silly is it? Because there's a difference between funny and silly. But I love that Trapper comes in and asks if Hawkeye has a second, and he says he's trying to, proposition the nurse, and she just looks up and go, he has a minute. Yeah, no, he has time. He has time.
Yep. This is going nowhere. He has time. And we find out that Pi is having a negative reaction to his transfusion, which is most likely hepatitis, which is not good because hepatitis is an infectious disease. And you do not want the whole camp coming down.
That's just what they want you to think.
Nope, we're not going down that path. Nope. I am hard cutting that joke tangent. Nope. We're not going into Alex Jones territory.
Guys, germs don't actually exist. They're just tiny demons. You need holy water. That's the only way to get rid of them.
Tiny demons that the left is putting into the drinking water.
Oh, Jesus.
Hold me closer, tiny demons.
God. So Pi might have hepatitis, and again, because it's something that's going to be a plot point in multiple episodes in this series, quick little rundown on hepatitis. There are multiple types. Hepatitis A is spread via fecal matter, hence why it's common in areas like, a war zone where you have very little sanitation potentially. B is blood and body fluids. Also a problem if you work in a hospital or, a battlefield where there are just open wounds. And C is specifically transmitted through blood, which is why you hear hepatitis C touted as, the don't share needles, one of the don't share needle diseases, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But all forms of hepatitis, not great. Symptoms are fever, fatigue, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, dark urine, light-colored stools, joint pain, and jaundice, which is like when your skin and eyes and all that start to turn yellow because it's affecting your liver, and your liver's not processing out toxins and impurities and stuff. So your skin starts to look very pallid and yellow and not great.
And gross. Yeah.
The most common example I can give that is if you've ever visited an elder relative in their final days and they kind of look yellowy, it's because their liver is failing, unfortunately. But yeah, not great. Hepatitis, not good. Type A is the most common and is usually easily survivable. Type C is pretty survivable, but can have long-term effects. Type C is less survivable, but has risks of liver disease, cancer, all that jazz. So yeah, hepatitis sucks. Don't get hepatitis.
Yeah. Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs. Stay in school. Obey your parents. So yeah, Frank might have hepatitis and may have given it to Pi. They point out that it seems unlikely that the symptoms would have shown up this quick, but also it's a war zone and variants of diseases are a thing, and who knows? Better be safe than be sorry. So they need to start figuring out, 1, is Frank sick? 2, if he might be sick, do not let him touch things.
No touch people. Things. No,
particularly people.
Yes.
This leads them to think, well, we need to get a sample to Tokyo, and they have enough blood left, but they want to, double redundancy. They want another sample, so they need to rig up a reason to collect fluids from major burns. They go with urine. Thank God. So they trick him into drinking copious amounts of beer. And we get to see Spear Chucker, which is nice.
We do. He's there. For all of a minute.
Did you enjoy his presence on screen? Were we able to soak him in?
It was sweet while it lasted, I guess.
Well, I hope you enjoyed Spear Chucker because...
God damn it, I knew it.
We have reached that time. This is the last appearance of Timothy Brown as Spear Chucker Jones.
Oh.
Yeah.
Another one who goes.
Another. Dun 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 dun. Yeah. Yep. Slowly but surely, they're figuring out that you do not need 12 main characters like a movie. You can get away with a couple of very strong, much fewer, much stronger characters. But yeah, this is Spear Chucker's last appearance, so I hope you guys liked him while he was here. We'll talk about Timothy Brown toward the end of the episode, kind of do a nice little wrap up for him and see where his career went. But so Frank comes in, they trick him into drinking a bunch of beer by saying they taste funny, and he admits that he can't, it just runs right through him, which I've heard people say that about beverages, like they'll drink them and be like, oh, it goes right through me. Frank drinks maybe a half can's worth of beer in a minute or two.
Further proof that Frank is not human.
And immediately has to pee. Now, I have never chugged a bottle of water and been like, oh, I need to urinate. Like, Frank's kidneys must just be cranking.
My man overclocked his kidneys. He is dedicated.
Oh. Wait, I love the scene goes on the perfect length, I think, for it to just hit. Like, it's not so long that you're like, why are we still here? But it's not so short that it's unbelievable. It's like the right amount of, okay, number one. Okay, now try number two. Okay, which one's different? I can't tell. Okay, number one. It's just
close the right this time. Okay, try it again.
It's just the right amount of length for that to go on. I think they left it at just like the right point for Frank to run out. And I love the whole time Spear Chucker and Trapper just looking at each other like, what? We are 6,000 miles from home in a rat-infested tent with the possibility of being hit with artillery at any moment, operating on wounded soldiers, watching our superior officer, who is really an inferior human, drink beer until he has to urinate. Why are we here?
God bless America. Oh,
God bless America.
We went a couple different directions there.
So yeah, Frank has to urinate. He runs to the officer's latrine, to which Radar is boarding it shut because renovations are ongoing in the latrine, which is clearly just part of the ruse.
Ongoing redecorating.
Which I love. This is another scene of Radar kind of being the cynical, sleazy company clerk before he becomes more innocent Radar. But I love that he has this whole spiel prepared for Frank where he's like, well, we had complaints that the latrines were lacking any aesthetic qualities whatsoever.
Have to show the enemy the importance of democratic plumbing in action.
Democratic plumbing in action.
Democratic plumbing in action comes up in another episode. I can't remember if it's a season 1 episode or a season 2 episode, but we will learn more about the democratic plumbing of the 4077th, which is the weirdest teaser I could give you. But hey, It
is. But all right,
here we are.
I know a thing or two about democratic plumbing. I remember sewage running down the streets at camp.
Ah, those were the days.
So Frank has to go into the alternate officers' accommodations, and he turns around and it's just 4 poles and a blanket, to which he fairly states that's it. Radar, no sir, there's more actually. And he just hands him a bucket.
This is a bucket.
So Frank uses the alternate latrine, and while he's doing that, I noticed that they're all Hawkeye and Trapper and Private Lorenzo Boone. Remember him?
Barely.
Nope. He was a character from the book and movie that they brought in. He was the guy that said they should let Frank walk into a chopper blade, or make it look like he walked into a chopper blade. Yeah. Do you like that character? Is he growing on you?
Not anymore.
Not even
this
slightly.
Is Private Boone's last appearance as well.
Oh, he's going out with Speed Trucker. Excellent.
Next you're going to tell me that Ugly John is. No longer in the
Nah,
show.
he's a character that'll be around for a long time.
Oh.
Anyway, foreshadowing is sometimes quite obvious. While they're sitting there in the Jeep waiting for Frank to be done, I noticed that there's a sign behind them that says 38th parallel, North Korea, South Korea, which is a weird sign because is that implying that MASH is on the border of North and South Korea? I don't know. Just something I noticed.
Well, it is supposed to be a front line unit. Is it that front line?
Well, you have to remember, and again, foreshadowing for our History of the Korean War episode at some point, the American military, the NATO forces pushed in, basically they took over North Korea. They pushed, the front line was almost to the Chinese border at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the reason China got involved in the war.
Mm.
But again, Korean War history for another time.
Oh.
So Frank comes out of the bathroom. They give the bucket of urine to Boone, which they treat that bucket as if it is full to the brim with piss.
Yes, they do.
Which
my man overclocked his kidneys. What can I say?
Are you a true gamer unless you start overclocking kidneys?
You are not. They sell better that way.
Anyway, and
Whose
I love
kidneys
because
are you selling?
the less questions you ask, the better.
Are you offering?
You have two of them.
Do you use anesthetic?
What's that mean?
Good. Thursday work?
It's anesthetic, that girl you like from that anime?
No, shut up.
That is a joke that makes no sense to any of the
Alberto.
audience.
No, anesthetic.
Atlanta.
Oh no! No
We
one
should,
gets that joke except the four people in that were in that Discord
Wilson
call.
has a lovely crush on a lovely young lady named Alberto, and that's all you need to know.
I think the sign of a good podcast is making jokes that our viewers will not understand.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it.
I'm sure that's going to go over well. Yeah.
Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, Frank and his girthy kidneys. So Frank comes out of the tent looking relieved, and he wanders off. And I love that because he came into the tent and started taking off his boots, he's walking around with one boot missing, and he's just kind of hobbling.
New boot walking.
New boot walking.
Yeah.
So they realize they have about 2 hours until the sample comes back with a positive or negative. And in that time, they realize they can't let him near any patients and nowhere near Major Houlihan.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads us into another weird, I referenced it in the intro, like, gag where Hawkeye is like nature documenting.
This was fun. This was fun.
This was better than the new Daydream, but it's still like,
so much better than that. Yeah. Weird, but I'm here for it, cautiously.
The female of the species. I do love the voice Hawkeye does. But they realize they need to keep Frank and Margaret apart. And I think the part about it that sets me off, that seems weird to me, isn't the nature documentary part. It's the weird like bird call Hawkeye does to like signal that radar needs to interfere, which that's the moment in the episode where it's like, this feels very hijinks at the front. This feels like the furthest in this episode, at least from what the show is supposed to be. It feels very much like Hogan's Heroes. Like, Sergeant Schultz is coming around the corner, do a bird call and put the cabin back in order so he doesn't know we're secretly spot. That's what the bird call kind of like threw me off for a moment. Like that's weird. So yeah, they have to keep Frank and Hot Lips apart. Radar sends Frank to Henry. Margaret goes into the tent that she was hoping to rendezvous with Frank in, and Hawkeye follows her in, and she starts feeling up Hawkeye, which is, Margaret, I know you are lusting, but can you at least identify the person that you're feeling up? Like, can you take a half second to like register who is?
She's only human. He who is without sin can cast the first stone. I mean, we all make mistakes.
And I love that for a half second she doesn't clock that it's Hawkeye even after he talks.
Mm-hmm. Like, we're all right.
Secretly, she wanted it to be Hawkeye. Secretly, it's always been Hawkeye.
Oh, it's funny you should say that. Anyway, that's for another season. So Frank goes to see Henry, and might I say, Henry is looking rather dashing in his U.S. Medical Corps lab coat.
He is.
I don't know what he's looking. His hair's all done. He's looking really. My man is looking fresh. I gotta respect him. And I love that Radar's doing the professional double talking, like, Major Burns is here to see you, sir. Well, did I ask to see him? Obviously, he's here, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind initialing this paperwork with your initials? Why am I initialing this? To approve a stamp made of your initials. It'll save you on all the initialing. It's like, what?
Good job, Radar.
Dilbert
Say words to
war.
confuse poor old man.
Yeah. Colonel, am I dismissed? Oh, yes. I think we've just about covered it, Frank. And Frank's just
Covered
like, what?
what?
Also, Larry Linville's blue eyes are, again, stunning.
Dashing as ever, yes.
And I love that as Henry dismisses him and Frank walks out confused, Radar's just like, come see us anytime, sir. Like, I love how Henry's confused, but he's pretending not to be, and Frank's genuine, like, what the hell is going on?
What is happening right now? Yeah.
So they gave Frank and Margaret the runaround for now, and then they reconvene outside in public, and they're pretending to be nonchalant, like, we need to find somewhere to meet. But Margaret is her cup runneth over of lust. She is.
Oh.
Yeah, she is. She threatens to bite Frank's chest through his shirt.
That she does. I forgot about that.
She is in need of human connection right now. But unfortunately, they both have to go on duty. So, and I love that they say, oh, we have a duty. And now Margaret looks at Frank and like bats her eyes glistening and says, there's always the coffee break.
There's always the coffee break, Frankfurt. Don't worry.
Frankfurt. Oh, God.
Is that his full name?
No, Frankfurt.
Prove it. Show me Larry Linville's birth certificate.
Well, his birth certificate would say Larry Linville, you idiot.
You don't know that. What's Obama's last name, huh?
We still don't know.
So we transfer to Hawkeye and Trapper saying that the results should be here any minute. We can't let Frank get near patients. And I believe this is the only time we actually hear them refer to Private Boone as Boone. I think that's the first and only time that he's named.
Yeah.
Is Boone. Boone should be back any minute, is what they say. But we see Margaret is helping Frank scrub up, and it looks like they're scrubbing with Hawkeye and Trapper for surgery, which is weird because we didn't hear any wounded arrive.
No, we did not.
Because I don't think they would scrub up to just do post-op duty, because you're constantly touching crap. You would have
Henry
to be constantly...
is doing that exploratory on Radar after all.
Oh, no. No exploratory is on Radar. Yeah, so Margaret's helping Frank wash his hands, and Frank's just kind of in a daze, which I love.
He's there. Mostly.
Hawkeye and Trapper try to politely say that Frank shouldn't operate, and then they say that he's an ad for death, which is hilarious because the man's not sick. Like,
nope.
They think he's sick, but he's clearly not sick. And as soon as they tell him that you might have hepatitis, I do like that Margaret and even Frank to an extent are like, wait, what? Because if like they for a half second are like, okay, that's actually serious. How do you know this? And they explain that we took a pint of blood out of you. And I love how Margaret's like, you took his what? Like, you did what now? And I love how they're explaining to Frank, like, look, the lab results are going to be back any minute. Until they get back, can you just not do anything?
Just
And
stop doing things.
For a half second, he thinks about it. And so does Margaret. And then Frank's like, nope, you guys are crazy. I'm not sick. Yada, yada, yada. And Frank, to his credit, gives valid points like, the symptoms would have shown up by now, which in my notes for hepatitis, I forgot to mention, the symptoms take 2 weeks to 6 months to start happening, depending on how susceptible you are. So it's like the overnight hepatitis is not a thing. So Frank is kind of in the right, like, from a medical standpoint, yes, hepatitis wouldn't show that quickly, but from a ethics and safety standpoint, Hawkeye and Trap are correct. And if there's even a chance that you might be infectious, you can't go in there.
Yeah.
So there's still that little grain of Frank isn't 100% wrong. He's technically kind of correct, but also he's not as correct as he could be because of his vanity and his frankness.
To the show's credit, I think at the very beginning, Trapper has a little line about, Hawkeye goes, hepatitis couldn't show up that quickly, and Trapper, I believe, goes, well, could be a new strain. So they kind of try to do a genuine right by the medical textbook.
Yeah, no, and that's totally valid because obviously with the most recent, global pandemic, how many variants of COVID are we on now?
Yes.
Yes.
About a few.
The answer is about a few. But so they restrain Frank and Hot Lips by handcuffing Frank's arms around Margaret and then tying the gown Margaret was putting on Frank around Margaret. So they're just Houdini trapped together.
Salsa.
Yeah, I love that Henry comes in. He's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Look at us." And he's like, "Yeah, well, it's kind of funny without the music." But Radar comes in with the results for Hawkeye. Hawkeye immediately, as soon as he sees their negative, says, "Let him go. It's not an issue anymore." But he does say Frank is anemic because he gave a pint of blood when he wasn't ready. Which,
Yeah, you should have asked us, Frank.
So, yeah. And then in the closing scene, again, early beginning of the series, Frank is not peak terrible human being that he will eventually become. He is playing checkers with the POW. Which for anyone who has seen the series all the way through, if attempt to imagine season 5 or 4 or God forbid even season 3 Frank playing checkers with a North Korean. And
is season 3 the worst of Frank?
Frank slowly. We're gonna have, when the time comes, there is an appropriate moment to do it. We are gonna have an episode dedicated to Frank Burns because the more, and I've said this a couple times, on this current watch through, I am appreciating Frank, specifically Larry Linville's performance, more than I ever have. And I would like to, eventually we're going to unpack Frank Burns as a character.
Let's dissect him, his personality.
Like a frog.
Let's take a look at those overclocked kidneys. Yeah, but for the end of this episode, Frank is at least a little bit well-meaning, and even Hawkeye and Trapper are like, "Hey, we did kind of a weird thing by taking your blood. Here are some flowers." And then they ended on the joke of, "We want to try out a new heart transplant on you," which,
Frank genuinely liked the flowers, too.
Yeah, Frank was genuinely in a good mood right there.
Yeah, he was. He was like, "Flowers
nice.
For me?" Oh.
They were almost friends. And they were roommates.
Like 2 seconds.
No.
Yeah.
So that was Germ Warfare. So before we get to what we think of the episode, there's a couple things I want to touch on. First of all, do we feel bad for Frank in this episode? Like, man's just trying to live his truth.
A little bit with the taking his blood and everything. That's a little far. If that's a little bit much,
Yeah, taking the blood was a bit much, but then once you've taken his blood and think, oh, he might be positive for hepatitis, maybe just go with him to Colonel Blake and be like, "Look, we did this stupid thing and he might be infectious and we have an infectious patient." Just let the cat out of the bag at that point. Frank is a piece of crap, and he'll get even worse as the series go on. But it's like sometimes I look at Hawkeye and Trapper and go like, did you really have to like take that extra step and poke the bear that one extra time? Like, was it 100% necessary? But Frank is meant to be our hateable character, as is Margaret right now. So yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So since he is leaving us, since he is no more, will appear in the show, I wanted to take a moment and talk about Timothy Brown, who plays Captain Oliver Hartman Jones, aka Spear Chucker, because he has a very interesting career path, both before and after MASH. Prior to being an actor, he was a football star. He played in the NFL. Which is appropriate because I do believe that was Spear Chucker's character arc too. He was a football player turned surgeon. I think. I'm not sure if I'm remembering the movie correctly, but I'm pretty sure that's why he. I think we talk about this in the pilot. He goes by Spear Chucker, which is a yikes name in 2022. And I think the show's reasoning is it's because, he was a quarterback and throws footballs. And it's like, yeah, but.
Well, yes, but also
it's set in the 50s. And. But,
yeah.
Where was I? Yeah, he was on the Packers in 59, the Philadelphia Eagles from 60 to 67, and the Baltimore Colts in 68. He's the Eagles' all-time leader in kick returns, kick return yards, kick returns for touchdown, longest kickoff return, and all-purpose yards ran. And I believe I didn't go deep enough down the rabbit hole. I think that means he still holds all those records for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know if that's just for like the time he was there, or if it's I think it says all-time leaders, so I think that means currently still, but someone can correct me on the internet, which, that's what the internet's made for.
Absolutely.
In 1968, he scored the last touchdown of the NFL championship game while playing for the Baltimore Colts when they beat the Browns 34-0. And his last NFL game was Super Bowl III versus the Jets, where they lost 16-7. So, yeah, football career. He then got into acting. Football. Yeah, he then got into acting, took, single roles through TV and television. He actually, I don't think I knew this until I did a little bit of research. He was in the MASH movie. I forgot that he was one of the four actors that were in the movie and also in the show at some point. He was not Spear Chucker. He played another soldier, Corporal Judson. And then he was on how many episodes of MASH? Without looking it up, how many episodes of MASH would you say Spear Chucker was on?
3.
4.
Wow. 6, actually.
Oh, well, all right.
He did 6 episodes of MASH, and he left of his own accord to pursue other projects. He did a lot of one-off roles up through 2000. Nothing that I saw on his IMDb really stood out to me as something like, oh yeah, I know that. He unfortunately passed away in 2020.
Oh.
So, yeah, Timothy Brown. And then Boone, played by Robert Gooden, Private Lorenzo Boone. He had a lot of one-off roles from the 60s through the 80s. Passed away in 2006. How many episodes of MASH do you think Private Boone appeared in?
2.
3.
Yeah.
Where was the third?
He was in the pilot. He was the soldier in a lab coat sitting on the bed when they drugged Frank.
Okay.
He was the guy who said they should make it look like Frank walked into a chopper blade and Henry, please come home. And he was in this episode.
Well, all right.
So yeah, those are the 2 actors that have departed for the series that had a significant role in the series thus far. So yeah, with all that being said, how do we feel about this episode overall?
Overall, not bad. It was entertaining. I think it was entertaining. Solid 3.8 out of 5, I think. Overall.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it was. There was a little weird stuff, but overall, I think it was fun. It was fun, quick little watch through. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a particular favorite? What stuck out to you? What was like the thing that's like, yeah.
The little bits they did, the nature documentary little bit, that was funny. I mean, there was just a lot of good little moments. It felt like there's just a lot of good little moments. Yeah, lots of diamonds in the not quite as much rough.
Do you think that has something to do with the mood you were talking about toward the beginning of
maybe potentially? I'm not sure.
Okay, Wilson, what about you?
You know what? I think I've made a point similar to this before, but I found this as a plot line that would have really been better in one of the later seasons. Mind you, I don't really remember the later seasons, but you've alluded to them enough to know that, things get serious, points are made, we get some more I don't know what to say, human plot lines, some more deep plot lines, and it feels like
less comedy, more drama. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Enemy soldier, needs blood. The argument is, do we ship him off to the POW camp or do we treat him now? That feels like it could have been a really good debate episode. But, putting that aside, it's like Jasky said, it was fun. The jokes were good. I've always loved Trapper and Hawkeye doing bits to each other, Igor to Hawkeye's count in this instance.
Yes, yeah, those little bits were fun.
So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.
Alrighty. And again, did you have a particular favorite moment or thing that you're like, yes, this episode?
Like I said, really just not so loud, my count. I thought that was funny. It's kind of my favorite comedy trope, two characters playing off each other and, in a different character like that. So it just warms my heart,
Yeah, so for me, this is a solid 3.5. I think, Wilson, you kind of hinted at the reasons why is plot-wise, this episode kind of plants little seeds of some things they're going to revisit a couple times really well as the series goes on, like enemy combatants. Do we treat them? Do we not treat them? A little bit of medical ethics. We took blood from someone who was not consenting. We get a little bit more like, hey, the ethics of war, like, yeah, war is war, but at the same time, people are people, kind of going back to, we actually haven't heard that line yet. I'm confusing it with a different episode, but we're going to get a line at a few episodes from now, that I can't wait to discuss, but basically hey, people are people, treat them like people type thing. And also, I hinted at it a little bit, Larry Linville in this episode as Frank was just good. This is Frank. This is Larry Linville starting to figure out how to play Frank before Frank becomes just a full-on cartoon villain later in like season 4 and 5. And it's really fun because you can tell he's having fun being Frank, and it's only going to get better from here. So yeah, 3.5 for me.
Okay.
But that's only part of the equation. Some of our fans had opinions. This lightsaber kills fascists. This is an underrated season 1 episode and a peek into what MASH would become. It has a balance of a silly plotline juxtaposed with a little bit of commentary on war, racism, and basic human decency. Plus, we get a description of Frank's dream, which always makes me laugh. Chief Smash Forever says 2.5. This is a very watchable episode and has some good moments, including Hawkeye envisioning the nurse nude in the mess tent and Frank making radar making Frank use the bucket. Let's go through. Donator 111 says 3. The story's okay. Good example of Hawkeye ignoring politics when treating patients. For the comedy, his favorite part was getting Frank to drink all the beer to get the sample. And I need to get this person's name. At Little Aussie _me says, I love this episode. I've always had a real soft spot for Frank. Is that just me? I don't know. He always seems just so lost. Which,
you know, Frank does seem like the kind of guy that just doesn't have a lot of direction in life at the moment, you know?
We, again, appreciating Larry Linville's performance more in this watch through, and I really do want to talk about Frank as a character, because they do... I think there was an opportunity to expand on Frank, and they just didn't seize the opportunity, and I really want to talk about it at some point. Chad Smith says 3 out of 5 beer cans, solid episode, blending wackiness with a low-key message about loving your enemy. Larry Linville's comedic chops are put to good use. Yes, I'm glad we're all on the same page that Larry Linville is our favorite.
Yes.
So yeah, and then we had one comment on Instagram from our friend Greg over at Beyond the Humidor.
Oh,
again,
yeah.
Everyone's just trying to get on my good side this episode. This is one of the episodes that I think showcases Larry Linville's ability to act best. We both love and hate Frank. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
I would say I love to hate Frank, but you know, semantics.
I also hate loving Frank.
What? I love hating Frank and I hate loving Frank. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't worry, Alberto.
Don't worry, Alberto. So that was Germ Warfare. Next up on the list is an episode I'm excited for. It's the halfway point through season 1. Okay. It is the first Dear Dad episode.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
I am very excited to see what the audience, both new and old to MASH, and you guys think about it, because it is a trope that they are going to repeat often throughout the series in very fun and interesting ways. But yeah, any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Overclock your kidneys.
Yeah, that's better than shave your corneas, I guess.
Oh, don't worry, the t-shirts are on the way.
No t-shirts. For anyone out there listening or watching this over on YouTube, do feel free to hit us up on social media. Let us know what you thought of this episode, any season 1 episode prior to this that we've done, or if you want to, get ahead of the curve and be, hip and cool and all that jazz. Hit us up about what you think of Dear Dad. You don't have to wait for us to post something about it. You can just hit us up in the DMs. You can do it right now over on Twitter at bestcare4077, on Facebook, Instagram. You can email us if you have, full, doctoral theses you need to send that can't fit in a 120 character tweet. That is bestcareanywherepod@gmail.com. All sorts of ways you can get a hold of us. You should also, I can't believe I haven't done this, rate and review us on whatever podcast player you are using, because that does help us. That is sharing us with your friends directly, and rating and reviewing us on the podcast players are the best way to give us a boost, get us out there to the world. But I think that is where we will leave it. We will see you next time for Dear Dad. Bye.
Don't trust strangers, dynamite.
Oh. Yeah, don't play with dynamite. That's probably a good... Yeah,
that's a good way to... Yeah, don't play with dynamite. Yeah. Boom kapow. Now you lost a thumb.